Okay, welcome everybody. I'm really happy I can present today the next level features of LangChain4j. Last year I did a basic introduction. Don't have time today to jump into the basics, but I will just quickly tell you what it's about for the people that don't know. So LangChain4j allows you to talk to models really easily from Java. And we see the models, we just use them via an API. So we don't have to care about being data scientists or this data ML ops. We just say in the DevOps space and we make it really easy to talk to the models. So it's not about training. It's all about using models, audio models, image models, large language models. So you see a couple, we support Azure, OpenAI, Gemini, Hugging Face, but also local models via Olama and via Docker Model Runner also. And so if you want to see what we support, you can go to the link there, github.com langchain4j/langchain4j. I'm there just quickly showing you. If you scroll down to the README, you will find here a table with all the providers we support, also embedding stores if you're interested in using that. We have examples, which I would really recommend to go see, documentation. So it's all here in your README, whatever you will need. Now, we don't only make it easy to talk to models, we also provide a lot of functionality around large language models. So if we say a basic large language model would be the user sending a user message to the large language model and a large language model replying, which we call AI message. That's the basic core node there. I'm using all the LangChain4j API names or object names, so then you're good right away. Now, we also support augmented LLMs, so that's everything you see around there. So system message that sets instructions for the model how to behave or what to do. Chat memory, because you heard it before, Brian said models are stateless. They won't remember what you said just before. So we have to provide them with this memory management ourselves, and LangChain4j makes that really a breeze to do. Then you see the content retrievers down there. So sometimes your LLM is not being trained on what the weather is going to be tomorrow or your internal policies for your company, things like that. So you can fetch pieces of content that would be relevant to the question in documents from the web, from a database. And also LangChain4j makes it really smooth. And then this is given along to the model so it can give a more informed answer. And then the last one is my favorite, a bit dangerous, but so much fun. Tool calling or function calling. So LLMs are capable to know when to call a method when we provide it. We say, oh, you have a method to check my emails, send emails, for example. And a model will understand from what you tell it when is a good moment to call those with the right parameters. If you want to learn more about the basics, go to LangChain4j-examples on GitHub. It's also linked in that README that I just showed you. And there's a folder tutorials. I think like in 1 or 2 hours, you're through and you will know how to do all the things I mentioned above. So definitely do it if you don't know the basics yet. But now, up to the next level features. So to demonstrate you our next level feature that we built like over the last year, I made an application together with Mohammed Ait Abderrahman. And we were thinking how it would be a nice demo. Maybe one of the problems with AI is that the training data is kind of limited and also it knows everything we humans know, but nothing more. So what if we could make it do inventions so it actually expands its knowledge? So we aimed here at level 4 of this ladder towards artificial general intelligence, with a wink, of course. So how does it go when humans make discoveries? Because that's how we modeled our app. First, it's like the problem. What don't we know yet? We're going to go look in, like when you're doing research in the scientific literature, like what do we already know about this problem? And with those two things together, you will design an experiment that should give you an answer to your question. You're going to run the experiment, typically in a lab by doing a survey, by really doing something. And then you're going to analyze the results, pull a conclusion, and then publish these results, very important, so the knowledge base gets extended for the next person that comes with a new question. We trimmed it down a bit from a general genius researcher to just antibody drug discovery. And yeah, we trimmed it down really much more just to show you a bit what cool features we have to make your app enterprise ready. So a very quick intro on antibody drug discovery. Our immune system works like this. You have this disease cell, the red one, and it has markers on its surface that our immune system can recognize, called antigens, doesn't matter. And then our antibodies, that's part of our immune system, they they recognize these and they bind. It looks a bit like this. And once our antibodies have bound to the disease, they signal that it's up for destruction and our body takes care of removing it. That's how we fight diseases typically. But some diseases our body doesn't manage to recognize. So that's where engineered antibodies come in. It's really cool because these days we are solving types of cancers that we have no remedies for yet. Really exciting field to work in. So what we have to do to make an engineered antibody, a lot of things, but it boils down to finding the right sequence that will fit on this disease sequence. So we broke our app down in 7 steps. It doesn't exactly matter, but it's like you choose a disease together with the app. That would be a good target. You check what this disease looks like and how to recognize it. You see if there's already known things that will bind, and then you'll design a new one. You'll test how well it works, because once we design a new one, we want to know if it's toxic to humans, how well will it bind, is it stable once we inject it, things like that. So we measure these typically in the lab, and then we're going to publish our article. Good. How do we do this? There's 2 options to make such a state machine, or like to go through all these steps, basically. It's you let the LLM handle the state machine. So you just tell it has to run through all the steps and you give it all the tools and context it could possibly need. That's actually an okay approach for simple projects because it's very flexible and you don't have to program much. You just write that it has to run through the steps. It's very flexible, but it's very unreliable. You are not sure that this LLM will run through it in the right order. To show you what this version looks like in code. So you will find this also if you look into our project. If you're interested, I will share the link later. Then you can have a look for yourself. So this is an AI service, a LangChain4j concept of such an augmented LLM, and I will show you what the different parts are. So the system message is the instruction saying, yeah, you're an AI researcher and you have to run through all these steps with the user. Here are tools the model can use. And as you see, there's a many. So there are classes with multiple tools inside. And because there's so many, it's very confusing to the model in this case, because we have too much, actually. And then the retrieval augmenter has a lot of content retrievers in there where our AI service can pull in extra information, for example, from scientific literature or from databases. As you can see, it's a lot for one model to handle, and it's going to be confused and probably not do this correctly. But again, for simple services, you may go for this. The other option is to build a code state machine and plug in AI services or augmented LLMs inside. The nice thing is you can go as complex as you want, but it is more work to program. And also, if you forget to program certain backpaths, it's not flexible as the LLM. Like if I want to change my disease halfway my project, an LLM will know to start back from 0. If I forgot to program it in my state machine, it will be very confused and not know what to do. So to show you the advantages of coding your state machine, I have here a flow where an AI assistant will help you through a shopping workflow from selecting products to placing your order. So for example, you want place order to be only called after the basket is verified by the user and not optionally after it. So you don't want to tell the LLM, yeah, just do it after, because maybe 1 out of 10 it will not. If you code it, there's no way you get to place an order without the basket being verified. Another thing, once you place the order, which is a costly operation, you want actually human confirmation that it actually should go through with this. So then you use human as a tool, or human in the loop. I like these terms. It just means like you let your human decide something or choose yes or no, continue. And again, you write this in code, so the LLM cannot skip it. There are other parts like calculate the total price that you want to have executed with code, not with an LLM. And by wrapping it like this, you just ensure that this step is going to happen with code. Another advantage is then that the LLMs you need for these smaller steps with less tools, with less responsibilities, they can be smaller models. Smaller means also cheaper and faster. Good. I show you how this looks like in code because I actually find it very important that you feel like you can do this at home, because you can. So these are our 7 steps, and one part of our code is actually where we receive the message from the front end. We're going to check. It's like a big if, or you use a while switch, sorry. But so for every incoming message, you just check in which step we currently were. So here we're in define disease, and then we're gonna call our disease picker AI service. Once we're in find antigen step, we will call the AI services that go with that. That's how simple it is. And then I show you how actually these objects work and bump you to the next state. So the first step is choosing a disease, which is chatting, right? You want to spar a bit with the AI to see which disease you want to choose. So this service should have a memory. We don't need RAG. We don't need extra content because we're just sparring. And we need the tools store disease name, which will store this on our stateful object that will actually keep everything we found in the project. And in code, that would look like this. So this one is just you help the user to choose a disease. And once he has chosen, you're going to store the disease name. Here, the memory ID means that there is memory to this little chat. And here you see the tools for disease picker. Now, how do we get to the next step? So once we're, after a bit of chatting, sure, we picked a disease. That's with the tool store disease name. And there you see not only will it store the disease name on our research project object, but it will also bump us to the next step being find antigen. And so next time the user sends something back, it will be in the next step. Then step 2, for example, finding an antigen is actually not a chat. This is just once a disease is picked, actually we want our agent to figure out what it looks like, what the sequence of it is. We don't want to chat, so we will have no memory, but we will have retrieval augmented generation because we will want it to go search in documents that describe this. And then it has some tools to find the sequence and to, again, store antigen info, which will, again, bump it to the next step. So what you see here is the tools for the antigen finder and the retrieval augmenter, which is basically this RAG. I will show more about that later. You also see an example of how to use parameters to send parameters to the model. So the real user message that's going to be sent to the model is find a suitable antigen for the disease name, whereas it was just called with disease name. Good, and so on, and so on. A next thing we will need here is advanced RAG. So RAG, retrieval augmented generation, this way to retrieve extra content to let you know, LLM know what we are talking about, that it maybe didn't have in its training data set. So everybody who's been using RAG, the way we know it with the embedding store and the vectorization, may have noticed that there's a couple of issues. I'm pretty sure you noticed. Some important fragments are not found. Some fragments are found that really have nothing to do with the question, and then they are sent to the LLM, which will try to use them in its answer, and all of a sudden the answer will really make no sense anymore because the fragment of text made no sense. Another issue I ran into while building this application was this. My apps ask me, shall we proceed to the next step, blah, blah, blah. I say, yes, please. And I see in the logs, which you will see later, we have them side by side, so you see what's happening. In the log, I see like, yes, please, a big juicy stew of personal story, funny bits on sex and love and friendship and parenthood. And I was like, what? So what happened here? It took yes, please as the input query, and it went to do a web search. That's what I found. So this is what you really want to avoid in production. So that's why we came up with this advanced RAG, and we wrap the things in a retrieval augmenter. So this is a schematic. I will walk you through it so you understand it and then show you the code so you know that you can do this at home. So what we had before were content retrievers that would find the relevant content. Now we have multiple ones, and we support out of the box. Everything down here is what implementations that we support out of the box. So we support embedding store for just document chunks, Neo4j for graph RAG, web search, and SQL for relational databases. So you can go search in all these things or write your own. Then we need a query router to choose where actually to send our query to one or more of these retrievers we have. So we store them in a map with annotation. So the model that's in the query router will actually know where to best go search. It will also take care of rewriting your query to something that fits, for example, SQL, when you're going to search in a relational database. Before that, like this would still let the yes, please pass here. So we need a query transformer. What it will do is this. It will take your history and turn yes, please in something like proceed with finding the antigen for this disease or something, so that it's actually a query that makes sense. An expanding query transformer does the same. So it takes this history, it makes something that makes sense, but it makes multiple. So it asks enough questions to be sure to find all the information in the sources. So once you're there, you want to search the right information in the right places. You have all these pieces of content that you need to put together somehow. Default content aggregator will just put one after the other. Re-ranking content aggregator, which I really recommend to use, will look if these pieces of content are actually relevant to the question. So it uses a very small, very fast, very cheap, even I think we even have a free built-in version, a model that will answer this question. Does this piece of content, is this relevant for the question? And if not, it's going to have a low score and you just kick it out. So you're sure only the relevant pieces go make it to your LLM. And then you just put back the user question. You add these pieces of content you found, and then the LLM will give you a better informed answer. Now, looks pretty complex. What does it look like in code? Here we have 3 content retrievers. So we have a normal embedding store content retriever to search in our literature docs. You can look in the code later to see how this is done. It's also part of our tutorial if you go look there. And once we created this content retriever, we're going to put it in a map. That's very important, and give it a description. So this is scientific literature on diseases, and I mean, it's a longer description, fell off the page. So our model actually knows what it's looking at and where it should search. The second one is web search. So we would also put this in the map and call it web search. That's self-explanatory, except we don't for this application because we want the search to happen really in the literature and really in our protein databases and not just on the web because we're doing science. And then the third one is a SQL database content retriever for the proteins. Again, we put it in this map. Once we have this map, we can build this entire augmented retrieval augmenter. So we use a builder. We add the query transformer. It's this compressing query transformer that I told about before. Again, if you look in the code, you see how it's all declared and constructed. After the query transformer, you go to the query router that will choose from this map that's already in there. The content aggregator is the one with a little scoring model to kick out content that has nothing to do with the question. And the content injector just hangs the user message together with these pieces of contents and with a little, we wanted a little custom message here. Otherwise, you don't need this and you can go with the default. Good. What else? In step number 6, where we measure the performance of the sequence that we built, we want to actually be calling custom models that are like really tailored to biopharma and that can predict how well something binds or how toxic it is. Or we actually want to call someone in the lab to perform the experiment or steer the robotics in the lab, because a lot of things these days are done with robotics. So how do we call another model from one starting LLM, right? So what you see here is one example of what we would call agentic systems or multi-model architectures, where you have an orchestrator model that will dispatch calls to different models, and then a synthesizer model that will make something out of the result before you're ready. If you're interested, agentic models, you can look up this article of Anthropic that shows many of these architectures. Now, how did we do it? The nice thing, LangChain4j lends itself super well to build this kind of architectures because you can wrap the next call in a tool. And the orchestrator will just know, oh, I can call, for example, we just have a function here that's in our real project, get URL to the structure file. So to show the structure of our sequence. That's all that the model gets to see. So when we ask like, oh yeah, and also give the structure, it knows it. I call this easy for the LLM. But what really happens behind the scene is that we make a real call to Google's AlphaFold and we get this real structure file, which is complex logic, but we shield it from the LLM by giving it just one clear title. Optionally, you can also give it a description. And so you can build really layers of dispatching by wrapping everything in tools. It's really convenient. Now, if you are curious which model to pick and how strong it has to be for the task you're giving it, how much they cost, I have 2 links here, llmprice.com and livebench.ai, that give you indications about price, model quality. And one last thing that's also important to consider when you're working for a company, data privacy. So maybe you are not allowed to send things to OpenAI or Gemini or Azure. And then you will want to use a local model, some open source model that you can run on local hardware. So keep that in mind and keep a good eye on the terms of use you have when you're using a paying service such as OpenAI, depending on what user data or sensitive data you may be handling. A quick word on the Model Context Protocol, MCP, that you may have heard. It's buzzing all over the place, but I mean, I like it. I totally understand why there's so much buzz. We don't use it in this project, but you should know you can really easily implement this in LangChain4j. It works as follows. So MCP servers are little programs that let you connect or do anything, basically, in an LLM readable format. So this means it already comes with methods that are already annotated with what variables are needed and what they do. And you just plug them in LangChain4j, and then you can use them. For example, if you want to find some, you can Google GitHub MCP server Gmail, and you will find probably multiple projects. And you can just pull those in and use those, so you don't have to write all this tooling yourself anymore. It's, of course, it got so easy to let your models do crazy things. It's also dangerous, right? But just so you know, you can do this also in LangChain4j. Something else we need when building an enterprise application definitely are guardrails. Guardrails, for example, they're needed for this specific app because you could actually build biological weapons if you know what you're doing, from like ChatGPT's o1 on. That's like a real risk. So we want to put some guardrails in place to avoid this happening, but maybe for your company, it's to avoid that people try to hack it or ask questions they shouldn't. Guardrails are there to sanitize the input, so to stop it. It will not even be sent to the LLM if it fails, if it doesn't pass the guardrails. There's also output guardrails that will check what comes out of the model. Maybe it's not according to your company policy or something, and you want to prevent it from being sent back to the user. So we have input guardrails, output guardrails. In code, they look like this. At the moment, they are in Quarkus, but there's a PR open for having them in vanilla LangChain4j, thanks to Eric D'Andrea. It's going to be there very soon, like next month or so. It should be merged, and then you will have them in the vanilla LangChain4j too. They work like this. You can annotate a whole AI service or its method by like this, input guardrails. And here I want to prevent that it lets pass biological weapon creation requests. So what's in this no biological weapon class? That's implementing this input guardrails. And there's a method validate that will return failure if some conditions is not met, and otherwise success. When success, then the message goes through. When failure, then it stops right there. And to figure out whether or not it's an attempt to a biological weapon, I made a little AI service. I'm actually using another LLM, but there's, of course, other strategies to do this. But I use another LLM that I give a bunch of examples, like what known antibodies are toxic to humans. That will be a 1, so that's definitely an attempt to create a bioweapon. What is the antigen for this cancer? That's then 0, because clearly you're trying to solve a problem. Good. I think it's demo time, so may the demo gods be with us today. I already spun up this Quarkus application. So let's first try to discuss which disease we want to have. So I will ask what kind of cancers are incurable and really bad, because I mean that's also really where a lot of research is focusing on at the moment. So it passed the input guardrails. That's good, because it was not an attempt. And the one I'm going to pick here is the glioblastoma. It's a brain tumor, a really bad one. So, well, for me, speaking and typing, it's hard. So I'm going to say solve it and see what it does. So you see here the logs going. You saw we moved to step 2 because I picked my disease and it got stored. Now green is it's going to search the literature. It says it finds this antigen info. It found it. Yellow is it's calling a tool to find a sequence to store it. Blue, it moved to step 3. Green, it's looking again in the literature. It's calling more tools to store information because it's searching known antibodies in the literature already. So it's going really fast. I don't have much time, so it's good. It's looking again in the literature for the antibodies it found, how well they have performed. So what do we already know, basically? And then it asks me, I found these antibodies and they bind well and they're toxic like this. Which one do you want to continue with. So I'm going to choose cetuximab here. So that's I choose, it stores it, it moves me to step 4. It's going to find information about this antibody, some more. And now it is designing new antibodies. So it's, you see here, design new antibody via Anthropic Claude, which is not a great model to design a new antibody. But we've put it in there to show you how you can let one model call another model. The model we actually wanted to call was Alpha Proteo from Google. That's designed just for that. But we don't have access because we're not a scientific institute, so we just let it return a dummy, right? But the Claude call is real. But then again, Claude is not apt, so it hallucinates everything here. Now it's asking me, would you like to measure how well these designs perform? This is human in the loop. Because this is a costly step to perform these measurements, you're going to call special models that are maybe paying, or you're going to have someone in the lab actually perform this experiment. So that's why I forced in the whole flow that it asked me. And so it says, well, it performs this well. These give back random results. They're not other models, but we could have been calling other models there. And we also have the link to the AlphaFold structure file. There we go. So this is the structure of our disease, and that's this real AlphaFold call that has been made. Now everything was measured. Do we want to publish in Nature or the New York Times? Let's do the New York Times. It's faster, it's funnier. In reality, you go to Nature, of course, and help research for real. Voila. So in a groundbreaking study, Mohammed Software and Lisa Dev, so we created this, we have utilized cutting-edge AI models to design potent antibodies, etc. That's the app. Good. One more thing. We want to be observing what's going on. So LangChain4j exposes a lot of metrics. And then, for example, the number of tokens used, the number of time spent in each step. That's what you see here. And you also want to have proper evaluation in place. And there I would really tell you, use these Quarkus tests. So in LangChain4j itself, we don't have a good solution for non-deterministic testing, but the Quarkus tests are awesome. They made something specifically for this use case. So you give a lot of samples with example input and what you expect as an output. And then you run the tests, 5 concurrent here in this case, and you will, of course, get another output. It's never the same what comes out of an LLM, but we're going to use, for example, a semantic similarity strategy to see how close the output is to what we expected. And they have some other strategies. So do have a look at that. That was it. So the slides are here. Here is the AI researcher repo. So you just look at github.com, Lisa Ras, and then you'll find it there. And LangChain4j is right here. And I'm open to questions if there are any.
Wow, great. That was a lot in short time. So thanks for giving me a lot of homework as well. So we do have one interesting question. Is switching between databases or web or AWS S3 for data in same context complex?
So if the question is for the retrievers, it's really easy. So as you could see, I have put all our retrievers together in a big map, and that is my augmented retrieval augmenter. But I can, of course, build a different one for each of my contexts, depending on where I want to use which one. When it's the question to use things as embedding models or even LLMs, it's also super easy. So you just add another dependency to the POM to use that model provider, and then you can swap. The only thing you have to know when you start swapping models in LangChain4j, it's really easy because you don't have to touch anything else in your code, except for example, a model is an OpenAI chat model. You have to change by Anthropic chat model or something, or Azure chat model. But then the parameters, they are different for each model. So if you have specific parameter set, you will have to make sure that they fit in the model provider you're using. All the rest of your code can just say the same.
Yeah, that's really the fact that I love about using a wrapper like LangChain4j. It comes with a lot of cool new features, but also with the ability for me to switch models, try out which one works best for my specific use case. And I'm also not dependent on the AI, on the API to stay the same, since they're not
we take care of that. Yeah. We take care of that for you. Whenever there's updates, we make sure it's supported really, really fast.
Exactly. Thanks, Lisa.